Nobody really likes Mario Kart Tour. Okay, that's not entirely true. A lot of people do like Mario Kart Tour. It's Nintendo's second best performing mobile game, and it's managed to outlive the ranks of Miitomo and Dr. Mario World, which both died within 2 years. But you know what I mean, right? Both in the Mario Kart fanbase and the Nintendo community as a whole, Mario's foray into the mobile racing scene has become a divisive topic at best, and the fandom's biggest butt monkey at worst. Like, when you see Mario Kart trending on Twitter, it's hard not to find at least a few different posts jabbing at this game's existence. And in fairness, I do understand why. Beyond the obvious detail that it's a predatory gacha game with icky gambling mechanics and real-world monetization, there's also the fact that it trades out the Madcap multiplayer of which the series is known for in favor of a single-player focused high-score hunting service game, that it's a racing game primarily played with a touchscreen and vertical orientation, that the new courses aren't exciting new Mario locations but existing real-world cities, that characters like Pauline and Funky Kong have gotten into a dumb mobile game that nobody plays before the mainline console game that's outsold Texas, that this is supposed to be the Mario Kart 9 that we've all been waiting for since 2014. Not a Nintendo Kart, not a sequel to 8 Deluxe, but a mobile gacha game where Diddy Kong costs 40 bones. So when I see people jab at this game on social media, treat it like the black sheep of the series that needs to be replaced by a proper Mario Kart 9, I fully understand because I used to feel the exact same way. Which makes it all the more shocking that I think Mario Kart Tour, that game we all downloaded at launch and immediately hated and backed off of, is good now, actually? Well, mostly. Sort of. It's fine. It's a fine game. Let me explain. Howdy folks, I'm Jenny Geist, and this is going to be an interesting one. I want to preface that this video isn't just going to be Mario Kart Tour good or Mario Kart Tour bad. I genuinely find this game really interesting to analyze, even if there's a lot of baggage that comes with it. But before I can talk about the Mario Kart Tour that exists today, I need to talk about the Mario Kart Tour that existed at launch, which, despite structurally being the same game, was significantly worse by pretty much every margin. Don't get me wrong, no service game has started out perfect, and it's natural for things to improve as the developers receive feedback, but it cannot be overstated how poor Mario Kart Tour's launch was and how much it still affects the game's reputation to this day. Most of the complaints that I discussed in the intro were defined by this shitty launch, and to understand how the game has improved, we need to understand where it initially failed. So let me walk you all through the version of the game that existed on September 25th, 2019, where as early as the tutorial, there were already some pretty big red flags. Initially, the game could only be played in vertical orientation with 2 options for control: simple, where you slide your finger to steer, and drift, where you slide your finger to drift. Yes, you could only do one or the other in any given race, and yes, it was about as bad as you'd imagine. After quote-unquote learning the controls, you would randomly be given your first pair of drivers, either Toad or Toadette, and either Mario, Peach, or Bowser, before being directed into New York Minute T for your first actual race. Here you'll notice that each track has 3 tiers of selection for the drivers, karts, and gliders. Favorite ones at the top, favored ones in the middle, and neutral ones at the bottom. And on New York Minute T, Mario and Bowser are favored while Peach, Toad, and Toadette are neutral, meaning that luck is already coming into play. The favored drivers are given 2 item slots while the neutral drivers are given 1, so if you didn't pull Mario or Bowser at the beginning, you're already at a disadvantage. And that's not even mentioning that the course's only 3-slot character is Tuxedo Mario, the spotlighted gacha character of the week. We'll get to that stuff in a moment. After bungling your way through the first race, you're given a score based on your performance, and this determines how many Grand Stars you earn throughout each tour. Then, after finishing a whole cup for the first time, you're also given 20 free rubies, which can be used to fire pipes and unlock new drivers, karts, and gliders. To clear more cups and earn special gifts, you'll need to earn more Grand Stars from getting high scores on each track. But to get higher scores on each track, you need higher tier characters, and to get higher tier characters, you need to spend rubies on pipes, and you mostly get rubies through gifts that you unlock with Grand Stars. Unless, of course, course you spend money. This tour has the New York set. For $19.99, you can get 45 rubies, 5 star tickets, and the character Mario. Then you can spend those 45 rubies to fire from the New York pipe 10 times. This pipe contains the spotlights of Pauline, the yellow taxi, and the fair flyer, as well as 70 to 75 items of normal rarity and 20 to 25 of super rarity. Since pipes contain 100 items total and are fired at random intervals, you have no idea if it'll take you 5 rubies to get what you want or 450. If the 45 rubies you got in the New York set only supplied you with some normal rarity babies and gooplings, you can always spend $69.99 on 135 additional rupees 3 times in a row, which is how much it costs to empty a pipe. When all is said and done, you'll have spent $230 to get Mario, Pauline, a few exclusive cart parts, and a bunch of normal and super rarity dogshit. But hey, at least now you can get a high score on New York Minute. Not in 200cc though, that's part of the $5 a month gold pass. This is terrible. It's almost impressive how bold they were to release the game in this state. It's bad enough to release a Mario Kart game with terrible controls and no multiplayer and no guarantee that you can play as Mario, but to couple that with some of the most aggressive monetization this side of the mobile tracks, all for an arbitrary high score system, and you have yourself a certified disastrous launch that almost immediately tanked the game's reputation. The most damning part is that most of these measures seem to be Nintendo's handiwork. I know that DeNA gets a lot of shit for Nintendo's weird mobile initiatives, but Tour is a game that is mostly developed in-house. Like, compare how Nintendo treats Tour, with it getting acknowledged in the anniversary post and the booster pass and all that, to how they treat the arcade games, which are fully developed by a third party. It had been 5 years since Mario Kart 8 and 2 years since Deluxe, and this was our Mario Kart 9. Yikes. But here's my thing with games like this. You know, the gachas, the free-to-starts, the service games of the world. I don't think bad business practices automatically cancel out any artistic merit that a project might have. I talked about this in regards to Activision Blizzard a bit last year. A game can be enjoyable and meaningful to someone even if buying it may have caused a terrible person or practice to make money. Those two things don't cancel each other out. It's just important to be openly critical about these practices instead of sweeping them under the rug, to be understanding of others' ethical lines even if they don't entirely match up with your own. Even in the Mythic Quest episode that I criticized for its justification of gambling mechanics, I do think they were on the money in portraying the actual developers as being against this type of thing. It's just that in the case of Mario Kart Tour's launch, the practices were bad and the execution was bad, meaning there was literally no middle ground for anyone to latch onto. I'm not usually into the arguments of one gacha game being better than another because it's more generous, as if being generous with casino money changes the fact that it's casino money, but even if Mario Kart Tour was way more liberal with its rubies and way more lax with its monetization, the core gameplay still wouldn't have been fun, and that sucks, because even with the bad practices and worse execution, I don't think any of the game's core ideas are inherently terrible. I know a lot of people scoff at the mere idea of a single-player Mario Kart experience, but I do think there's merit to the concept. One of the reasons that people look back so fondly on Mario Kart DS is its mission mode, which took assets from the game's 32 courses and repurposed them into quick pick-up-and-play challenges that fit the easy-to-learn, difficult-to-master gameplay of Mario Kart like a glove. While the high-score hunting structure of Tour is obviously different than the types of challenges that DS had, I don't think it's an inherently bad concept either, as it allows them to merge the mission structure of DS with the more traditional Grand Prix structure of the rest of the series. I know modes like Grand Prix and Time Trials aren't like the draw of Mario Kart, but at the same time, the Mario Kart speedrunning community is huge, and people have been begging for mission mode to return for ages. Mastering your skills in a single-player setting can be just as rewarding as beating your friends in a multiplayer setting, so distilling the former into a mission-based pick-up-and-play structure makes so much sense when adapting the series to mobile. Furthermore, anyone who's watched a video of Tour will notice that actions like drifting, jump boosting, using items, and collecting coins nets you points that can be strung together into combos. This is another idea where I can see how it may seem annoying in concept. How do you build a combo when you're being pelted with red shells and spiny shells? That doesn't sound very elegant or skill-based or fun. Yet, another part of what makes Mario Kart so fun to master is learning how to overcome those unlucky situations. Everyone jokes about those last-minute spiny shells being the worst thing ever, but the developers cut a no-item mode from Mario Kart 64 for a reason. The whole draw is to see if you can succeed even with all of these obstacles in the way. So in a single-player combo-based format, you might get hit hit by a red shell that interrupts your combo, but what you do after that is up to you. Do you try a quick but dangerous drift maneuver to desperately keep the combo going, or do you regain your bearings, let it start anew, and focus your efforts on the road ahead? There's no one-size-fits-all strategy. Additionally, Tour introduces reverse and trick versions of each track that dramatically mix up the moment-to-moment gameplay. In standard tracks, you might drive how you typically do in Mario Kart, but in reverse tracks, you're going to need to adjust to going in the opposite direction. And trick versions are basically just an excuse to max out your combos. Even the bonus challenges at the end of each cup, while most of the time very easy, act as nice little tutorials for how to succeed in the main game. Gliding challenges encourage you to take unique flight paths, jump boost challenges show you the value in tricking, ring or obstacle challenges help you get used to the controls. When you strip these ideas down to their bare essentials, most of them aren't bad. I know a lot of people would have just preferred Mario Kart 7 on mobile phones, and sure, that type of thing definitely would have been more widely appealing in the moment. But like Super Mario Run before it, that version of the game would have almost immediately been forgotten as players flocked back to the inherently superior console versions. To stand out from its contemporaries, a mobile game is going to need to do something different. So the question should be less, why is this different, and more, how could they make this work? How do you address those foundational complaints that turned everyone away, like the controls, the track selection, the lack of multiplayer, or the monetization? How do you salvage the bad game that existed at launch and turn it into something good, or at the very least competent? Well, for starters, you at the very least need to have functioning controls, so let's start with the first thing that Nintendo fixed, and possibly the biggest hurdle for anyone to enjoy Mario Kart Tour: those darn-fangled controls. Nintendo's earliest mobile games were really obsessed with the concept of you being able to play them with one hand. In fact, they still kind of are. On one hand, oh wait, no, that's confusing. On one foot, oh wait, no, that's worse. On one boob, I definitely get it. Not only is it a very Nintendo-y thing to do, but being able to get a quick bite of gameplay in while sipping a Cheval Blanc 1947 Cité Million is a novel concept. On the other boob, though, it doesn't usually work that well for games that aren't either turn-based or casual. Fire Emblem Heroes and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp work fine enough, but Super Mario Run definitely suffered from how simple and derivative it was of other runner games, and Mario Kart Tour is basically impossible to play with just one hand. You technically can, but you're at a severe disadvantage if you do, as you can't steer, drift, or use items at the same time, which is a pretty core tenet of Mario Kart. Fortunately, Nintendo must have caught on to how panned the controls initially were, because two of the game's earliest quality of life updates were specifically made to fix them. Horizontal orientation was added as an option around 6 months in, which is obviously a big deal since that's another thing that should have been there since launch, but the more important change in my mind was when they added the drift button. And yes, it did take them 2 months to add an option beyond either just steering or just drifting. In other words, the game launched for real on November 17th, 2019. Anyway, this wasn't just nice for the obvious reason of only being able to do one or the other is stupid, as drifting in Mario Kart Tour is both really useful for building combos and genuinely fun to do. For reference, the moment-to-moment steering in Tour almost feels like controlling a skateboard rather than a car, since instead of determining your direction with a steering wheel or control stick, you're doing so with a singular appendage. I wouldn't say it feels bad in a vacuum, but it's definitely more loosey-goosey than most are used to, and smart steering can only mitigate that so much. This means that being able to drift with a button press is honestly even more important than it is in your average Mario Kart game, as it adds a layer of consistency in your movement that was previously lacking. Compared to steering, drifting feels much closer to how it does on consoles. When you want to drift into a turn, you tap the button, follow the path you want to take with the curvature of your finger press, swipe back and forth continually to charge your boost, and then let go to slingshot yourself into that direction. Emphasis on the slingshot part in particular. If your regular steering feels more like riding a skateboard than a go-kart, then slingshotting yourself forward is going to have a whole new host of advantages. Not only does it give you a boost, it gives you a clear path forward into a new section, a reset in your position that can combo into whatever you'd like. Sure, the controls may feel like they belong in Tony Hawk more than they do Mario Kart, but again, this is a game about doing tricks, building combos, and acting stylish. For that, you're not going to want something tight or limiting, you're going to want something versatile and experimental. Your turns may build more exponentially than usual, sure, but the guiding arrow in front of the cart helps give an idea of where you'll go. Drifting is more important than usual, yeah, but when and how you do it is still up to you. As crazy as it sounds, the controls are honestly one of my favorite parts about the game, one of the reasons that I keep coming back to it. Once you master the steering and drifting, the amount of things you can do is insane. This is the only Mario Kart game where you can drift with 2 fingers at once, one determining your direction and the other building up sparks. This is the only Mario Kart game where you can maintain a drift while doing a trick or entering the air, where gliding and building airtime are not only mechanically useful but genuinely encouraged, where half pipes actually feel kinda meaningful to the track design rather than just being a useless set piece. I understand that some people are always going to prefer the more traditional style, and I can definitely empathize with that. There are inherent benefits to tactile buttons on a gamepad that touchscreens will never be able to replicate. However, I would also contend that slapping a gamepad onto a touchscreen isn't really a great solution either, and it certainly wouldn't have done Tour many favors. That format is easier to sync with a real controller, but let's be real, the majority of people who play these games don't play them with a controller, even when there is an option to do so. Take that away and you're left with a slightly worse version of what you have on consoles that doesn't utilize the new medium at all. To understand what I mean by this, let's compare Tour's control scheme to that of another mobile racing game with a much more traditional layout. Its horizontal orientation only, has a dedicated control stick and buttons, and for some reason stars Peter Griffin. Okay, what the fuck is up with Warped Kart Racers? In 2022, Apple Arcade really said, you know what our streaming service needs? A Family Guy racing game that also features American Dad, King of the Hill, and Solar Opposites. Okay, why? Why these specific series? Don't get me wrong, King of the Hill is great, but it's been off the air for 12 years. American Dad is stuck over on TBS and being watched by fuck knows who, and Solar Opposites is Solar Opposites. I like that show when I'm questioning why it's here. If this was just Family Guy, The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, and Duncanville or some shit, I'd get it. Those are the 4 current animation domination shows. If this were Family Guy, American Dad, and The Cleveland Show, sure, they're doing the Seth MacFarlane shows, whatever. If it were Family Guy, American Dad, King of the Hill, and Futurama, sure, it's the 2 main MacFarlane shows plus a few fan favorites. But why these 4? Why no Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, Futurama? Did they not want Matt Groening's signature at the bottom of the key art? Why does their official YouTube channel have less subscribers than me? Apple, Fox, if you need someone to promote this game, I'll do it. I'll take a sponsorship. I'll be your brand ambassador. I'll forgive you for Quagmire's dad and There's Something About Marrying. I'll make my whole channel Warped Kart Racers themed. I'm being serious. I will tie my entire brand to this game. It can't be worse than the time I joined the YouTube skeptic community. Ugh, feminists complain so much about having to have their period every single month, but my bleeds every single week and you don't see me complaining about it. Anyway, if you wanted Mario Kart Tour to just be Mario Kart 7 on phones, then Warped Kart Racers is the game for you. It's literally a mechanical carbon copy of that game, with both the usual things like drifting, items, courses, etc., as well as kart customization, gliding, battle mode, a robust online system, and even the option to use a controller. Being an Apple Arcade exclusive, all of the characters and tracks are unlockable from the start, and there's no additional monetization as far as the eye can see. There's a reason that a lot of people have, understandably but hilariously, called this better than Mario Kart Tour. Even I wouldn't go as far to say that it's bad. I specifically chose it as a comparison point because, by all means, it's decent. Or at the very least, it turned out better than Joss Whedon's Final Fantasy VII movie. He's right behind me, isn't he? That happened. But I'm not here to comment on the structural stuff or the game's quality as a whole. This is still a Mario Kart Tour video, I just wanted to point out the benefits and drawbacks of its more standard control scheme counterpart. Beyond the obvious inclusion of an on-screen gamepad, the first thing that you'll notice in Warped Kart Racers is that the breadth of one's movement is a lot more limited. Unlike the odd exponential steering of Tour, your turns in Warped Kart Racers are very binary. Peter will lean slightly right or slightly left, but unlike a real control stick, this digital one isn't especially built for sharp turns. It makes sense that this would be an issue, as the canvas of a touchscreen is much larger than the canvas of a control stick. When replicating it, there's the possibility that you'll either need to make super broad strokes to turn or uncomfortably little ones. Warped attempts to avoid this by essentially having you control it with a D-pad, which doesn't have pressure sensitivity at all. While that definitely works for older kart racers like Super Mario Kart or Mario Kart Super Circuit, that doesn't necessarily mesh with a a more modern game with a more modern control scheme. You'll often be presented with a sharp turn, lengthy gliding section, or winding path without the inherent freedom you need to maneuver them. This would probably be easier with a tactile controller, and I'm glad that's at least an option this time, but again, most mobile users don't play with a controller. For most of your audience, the only way to get through these poorly designed sections is to drift, and while I'm also glad that this game had a drift button at launch, there's also a double-edged sword to consider. So obviously, it's important to have both steering and drifting. I had a whole tangent about that with Tour, but when drifting is required to make certain turns in a track, it becomes less an avenue for player choice and more just an extra layer to steering. Most racing games, Tour included, design their courses so that they can be played even without drifting, both so casual players aren't alienated, and so when you do drift, it's your choice. And Warped fails to account for that both in its track design and its control scheme. There's not enough freedom to it, not enough curvature. If Tour is too loosey-goosey, then Warped is too tight and restricted. It's certainly easier to pick up and play, but at the same time, when you try to replicate Mario Kart 7 so closely, the limitations start to show more quickly as well. Some of the biggest mobile games ever, regardless if you personally like them or not, are popular because of how they take advantage of the mobile format. Candy Crush Saga is best played with a finger. Pokemon Go needs a camera and GPS to work. MOBAs are built for this tap-and-go type of gameplay. Just because they're different from console experiences, it doesn't mean that they're in any way inherently worse. Of course, some mobile games do manage to ape the style of console games. There's one in particular that's had a pretty big impact. I wonder what the Buddhist monk Genshin would think. World of Tanks! But yeah, I personally find it much more engaging to build around the limitations of a new medium, even if that means changing up an iconic formula or adding a bit of a learning curve. This video is going to be more controversial than my views on organized religion. We're almost done talking about the core gameplay loop, but there's one more puzzle piece we have to fill in before talking about the monetized elephant that's still looming in the room. Don't worry, I didn't suddenly forget about all that just because I like some parts of the game. But if Mario Kart Tour plays more like a skateboarding game than a racing game, then we should probably talk about the very courses that you're actually stylishly tricking through. I already touched upon each course having reverse and trick variations, but what about the brand new locations designed specifically for this game? The Mario Kart series is known for integrating crazy and unique locations that organically fit with whatever the game's new gimmick is. So what does Tour do to mix it up? Well, how about real-world cities? Yeah, just actual locations from the planet Earth. Those are the courses. Why are all the initial choices they made about this game so fucking weird and hard to figure out? If any of you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I've rather infamously been against the concept of a Nintendo Kart in the past. It's not that I don't understand the appeal in expanding 8 Deluxe's crossover aspect into a full Smash-style experience, but part of what makes Mario Kart so widely appealing is how approachable it is, both in its gameplay and in its world. The Mario universe is so inherently versatile that they can adapt extremely gamey locations like a perilous desert, fiery castle, or road made of rainbows, while still having room for locations based in reality, like a stadium, city, or mall. It's an approach that gives the developers an insane amount of freedom, one that wouldn't be available in a full-on crossover. Like, you can't just do whatever you want with a Zelda course. You need to make it Zelda-y. There needs to be a town, dungeons, forests, rupees, Hylians, Deku Babas. While there is fun to be had in seeing Link ride a cart or activate a shortcut with a puzzle, you quickly reach the point where courses feel designed around iconography first, playability second. Why do I bring this up, you might ask? Because Mario Kart Tour's courses, while not based on Nintendo, are still crossovers in their own way, just this time crossing over with our world. And like how I'm against the concept of a Nintendo Kart, I and many others were initially against this as well. For an example of what I mean, let's compare Tour's debut course, New York Minute, to its closest original contemporary, GCN Mushroom City. New York Minute, in all of its variations, has a very standard layout with very few original hazards. There's a couple winding paths, a few stationary trucks with ramps on them, and the occasional pothole-turned geyser, but nothing that hasn't been seen before in countless other courses. The only major things it has going for it are the facts that A, it's contained within a recognizable city with landmarks like Times Square, Central Park, and Rockefeller, and B, it has 3 distinct variations with different layouts in each. The differences are definitely slight, still mostly being designed around iconography and with a lot of shared terrain, but it's definitely something that future tracks could expand upon. Mushroom City, on the other hand, also has a New York-inspired aesthetic, but it fits in way more when not constrained to a real-world location. It has roaming traffic, with moving cars themed around Wigglers and Bob-ombs, branching paths that intermingle in various ways and aren't locked to alternate variations, work pits placed right upon a busy freeway, skyscrapers shaped like mushrooms off in the distance. This fake-out dead end with no gameplay utility, it's purely there for world building. While New York Minute certainly isn't bad, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who prefers it over its closest predecessor, and unfortunately, those issues are not exclusive to that first track. Paris Promenade and Tokyo Blur are at least more aesthetically unique, but their base layouts and tour are still as dull as a bag of bricks, mostly being squares or circles with the same piranha plant and thwomp hazards that we've seen countless times throughout the series. London Loop, the fourth Nitro track in the game, is honestly the worst of the bunch just for how overly long it is. I mean, I get it, London is a huge city and the developers had to fit in a ton of iconic landmarks. You can't have a fictional representation of London without Big Ben, Buckingham Palace, the Tower Bridge, and so on, but that's exactly my issue. Does this building being St. Paul's Cathedral add anything to the gameplay or world building? No, not really, but you can't explore London without seeing St. Paul's Cathedral, so it's gotta be there anyway, and I find that so absurdly limiting. It's bad enough that British people are canon to Mario Kart, but couldn't they at least have made their laps take less than a minute 30? When will the reign of Thatcherism end? Ultimately, like every other element of Tour so far, city courses did not exactly make the greatest first impression. They feel less like they were added for their organic gameplay potential, and more like they were added because Pokemon Go got a lot of attention for intermingling Nintendo characters with reality, and following suit would make it easier to slop out new tracks than creating entirely new ones. However, I should mention that these were the first 4 Nitro courses that they added, and using them as the basis for what a Mario Kart Tour course is would be like using Toad Circuit and Sheep Lagoon alone to judge the content of Mario Kart 7. While the idea may have some inherent drawbacks, that doesn't mean it can't be used to make something memorable. For the Nintendo Kart comparison, I may find Hyrule Circuit to be a bit bland, but Mute City and Big Blue fit the series perfectly. And likewise, even if these first few cities were pretty boring, that doesn't mean later ones can't expand upon certain ideas and find a unique niche. To see what I mean, let's analyze one of the most surprisingly well-rounded courses in the game, Berlin Byways. Despite my Judeo-German heritage, I didn't really expect much from this course when it was initially announced. Berlin isn't nearly as iconic of a city as London or Paris, and since both of those courses were already mediocre, I kinda questioned why a third was even necessary. But strangely enough, I think Berlin Byways is the best of the European courses so far, exactly because of how well it integrates its cultural influences with Tour's core gameplay. The first variation starts by winding you along the Berlin Wall, and already we're seeing that this cultural icon isn't just set dressing but an actual hazard. Then continuing onward, you progress beside this bridge, which you can race under for an optional boost. Then you reach a split path around this monument, which leads to the winding park with this optional shortcut, before finally passing under the Brandenburg Gate to complete the lap. Overall, cute course. Lots of split paths and unique hazards that suit Tour's high-score hunting gameplay well. But wait, there's more. Like New York Minute, this course also has multiple variations, but unlike New York Minute, these variations are almost completely distinct. Berlin Byways 2 starts in the same place, but going in the opposite direction. You drive through Brandenburg Gate, turn into a train station with a name I can't pronounce, and 3 different tiers of track, which then leads to a multi-tiered walkway that loops around back to where you started. Same map, same location, same general vibes, but with a completely different set of locales that change up how you play. Neither of these courses are particularly groundbreaking compared to the likes of Wii Toad's Factory or Wii U Sunshine Airport, but I will contend that despite their relative simplicity, they do have a strong sense of identity and agency. It's like the developers knew that if they were going to recreate a beautiful European city, they had to work in the gameplay quirks that one would expect from a beautiful European city. Multi-layered public transportation, split paths through tourist destinations, iconic monuments with Mario enemies worked in, and winding parks with hidden walkways. All of which, like the combo mechanic as a whole, give the player more avenues for moment-to-moment decision-making and strategizing depending on their playstyle. There's still plenty of iconography worked in, but it's used as an opportunity for gameplay utility rather than just a backdrop. In the end, it may not be as bombastic as a Mario Kart Wii or Mario Kart 8 course, but I would contend that it has a similar vibe to those of DS Delfino Square or 3DS Shy Guy Bazaar, taking inspiration from a real-life location to make a unique course that suits a specific game's controls. And hey, even if that's still not your speed, there's plenty of other genuinely great city courses to have dropped over the past few years. Most recently, there's Bangkok Rush, which takes the concept of split paths and multiple layers to its logical extreme as you race over or under boats, markets, and train stations. If you like those summer vibes, how about Singapore Speedway, which takes you on a varied tour of that city's vibrant nightlife from the Marina Bay Sands infinity pool to Chinatown to the Gardens of the Bay. If you want to try out a fan favorite, there's Vancouver Velocity, which uses the gorgeous Canadian city as an excuse to race through the perilous bridges of Stanley Park, the serene views of Lost Lagoon, the upbeat markets of downtown Vancouver, and even the inside of Rogers Stadium. As someone who lives in LA, I'm pretty impartial to Los Angeles Laps. This one is special for having 3 of the most distinct variations by far. One taking you down Santa Monica Pier, where you can perform tricks off of skate ramps, one where you dodge oiling rigs in the Inglewood oil fields, and one where you drive through downtown LA and glide over Dodger Stadium. Furthermore, I know folks from the Netherlands and Thailand who were really excited when Amsterdam Drift and Bangkok Rush were announced, as well as people from Australia who were big fans of Sydney Sprint. The Mario universe has always toyed with connectivity to the real world all the way back to its inception, so it's cool to see them expand upon that element with cities and cultures beyond just New York City. I do admittedly wish they had African and South American courses to represent every continent, although weirdly enough, Cairo, Egypt has been in the game's key art since launch, yet it somehow still hasn't come out, and it baffles me. But that aside, the city courses are pretty cool, and I like the change of pace they offer to the series. Also, before I move on, Ninja Hideaway is the quintessential example of Tour's awesome layered freeform design philosophy. I haven't played Merry Mountain for myself, but if Mother 3 fans can love something they've only watched YouTube videos of, so can I. And Sky High Sundae is mid. Sorry, I wanted to comment on the original courses, but there's not many of them yet, and most people have already played them in Deluxe, so there's not much to say that hasn't already been said. To make a long story short, Mario Kart Tour, by virtue of being a service game, is going to need to cycle through content. Games like this basically depend on the concept of stuff being limited, impermanent, and cycled through, to keep players coming back for the next new thing. That just comes with the territory. Yet at the same time, consistently pumping out 100% original Mario Kart courses would be basically impossible. Even when Mario Kart games were coming out every 3 years, they'd still only add a mere 16 new courses. And in the 2.5 years since Tour launched, it's only just now reached 14. Plus, Tour is a mobile game, and like Mario Kart DS or 7, the tracks cannot be as elaborate as the ones in their console counterparts. These are pretty major hurdles for a series like Mario Kart, which depends on consistently having engaging new content and exciting new tracks. But what if there is a way to solve both of these problems in one fell swoop? What if each drop of content was contextualized as a tour, an exploration of a new part of the world every 2 weeks? And what if, instead of just going on a tour of Mario's world, where new locations would need to be painstakingly built from the ground up as they were in Super Mario Odyssey, we instead go on a tour of our world? You know, where you don't need to build locations from the ground up because they're based on places that already exist. Places that happen to be big and diverse and bustling enough that you could practically make 3 tracks out of them. And suddenly, everything about Tour's gameplay loop and Nitro selection feels way more cohesive. To make Mario Kart work as a consistently updating game, you tap into Mario's history and bring back the connection between his world and our world. There is your game's gimmick. There is the tour in Mario Kart Tour. Wow, this game actually sounds pretty good now. I've defended and found quality in 3 of the game's most controversial features. Now all that's left is to talk about the one part of the game that people actually like, which has absolutely no downsides whatsoever, right? So on one hand, I think it's kind of funny when people complain about Mario Kart Tour having a nicer roster than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because, well, of course it does. It's a gacha game. I'm sure if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was also a digital casino with characters as currency, we'd all be talking about how excited we are for the President's Day event featuring George Bush and Dick Cheney costumes for Wario and Waluigi. But even then, holy shit, this game's roster is so much better than Deluxe's, and not even just in number. While there are technically 170-ish drivers when including costumes, the amount count of individual characters is somewhere between 44 and 53 depending on who you count, and compared to 8 Deluxe's roster of quote-unquote 42, the difference in quality among these choices is honestly staggering. The Koopalings and babies remain, but they and a few common enemies fittingly make up the game's normal driver selection, being the least desirable but most common pulls of the bunch. Beyond those losers and our typical Mario mainstays, Tuber's character selection includes long-awaited veterans like Petey Piranha, Diddy Kong, Funky Kong, DK Jr. and Birdo, common enemy ranks like Monty Mole, Charge and Chuck and the Hammer Bro gang, mainstay bosses and rivals like Kamek and Nabbit, and even some left-field swerves like Dixie Kong and King Babam. Even in the realm of semi-clones, the focus is less on new babies or metalized Marios and more on entirely different entities who happen to share a skeleton. They don't even fall into the trap that some fan rosters do of stretching things out with Galaxy or Odyssey NPCs that nobody would ever play as. I'd much rather have King Babam than JRPG McLimbleton. Character design peaked when they gave a sentient cartoon bomb a giant old-timey mustache. I wish he was my dad. Additionally, there are dozens upon dozens of alternate costumes for the series' existing drivers. Mario and Peach obviously have a ton with their Odyssey costumes and power-ups, but I think the real appeal is seeing the completely original costumes that go to Mario's wider cast. That's where we get awesome designs like Aurora Rosalina, later Hosen Luigi, Kangaroo Yoshi, Vampire Waluigi, Farmer Daisy, or the absolutely amazing 16-bit looks for Mario and DK Jr. Even the canon costumes look fantastic, like Luigi's Mansion King Boo, Vacation Peach, Tanuki Rosalina, Meowser, Dr. Mario, the latter two even bringing in new items with them? You heard me right, drivers aren't purely cosmetic. For the first time since Mario Kart Double Dash, every single character has their own specialty item that's not part of the regular rotation, ranging from mainstays like the Fire Flower, Triple Mushrooms, and Double Bob-ombs, to long-lost fan favorites like the Giant Banana, Bowser Shell, Super Heart, Yoshi Egg, Super Leaf, Lucky 7. Oh, and there's entirely new items too, like the Ice Flower, Coin Box, Dash Ring, Hammer, Gigabomb, Super Bell, Capsule, and Cannons. Just like in Double Dash, not all of these are made equally. Mushroom Cannon and Dash Ring have the downside of your opponents being able to use them, Banana Barrel is just as dangerous to you as it is to others, and Bubble is literally the funniest and most useless item in the game. And hey, at least the wider variety gives the cast a larger sense of individuality than usual. Only the Doctor characters have the Capsule item, which are like bouncier and less predictable shells. Only the Cat characters have the Super Bell, which rings a few times around you like a more balanced Super Horn. If you want to top the high scores, you're going to want a character with the Coin Box, which drops a torrential rain of coins around you that can massively buff up your combos. If you want something a little more defensive, how about the Boomerang Flower? It's been reworked to circle around you and vacuum in coins. My personal favorite is the Giant Banana, which absolutely kills it when you get a Frenzy. Oh my god, I haven't even talked about Frenzies yet. I wonder why that is. So, remember how I talked about the 3 different tiers of character that each course in the game had? Favorite characters get 3 item slots, favorite get 2, and the rest get 1? Well, when you actually do play with 3 item slots, a new mechanic entirely emerges: Frenzies. Upon rolling 3 of the same item, the player briefly enters an invincible state where they can use that item as many times as they want, essentially like a star, but combined with whichever item they pulled. And oh boy, are these important. I've already spoken at lengths about the combo system and how it works in regular play, but when racing with 3 item slots, Frenzies are key to not only extending your combos, but multiplying them. This is where the game transforms from just a score-focused racer to a score-focused Mario Kart game specifically, because, like most other mechanics in Mario Kart, the odds are random. I won't get into exact percentages yet, but when starting off, they aren't going to happen all that often, even if you do have 3 item slots. This means that, when you do get one, you need to make it count. Dropping 1 banana will make 1 of your opponents crash, but unloading a Banana Frenzy can make all 7 of your opponents crash. Using 1 coin box will likely give you a dozen or so coins, but a coin box Frenzy will spray double or triple the amount. And then Boomerang Frenzies, well... Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I could see this power fantasy element turning some folks away. Like, you've heard of unlucky Mario Kart races? Try fighting back against a lightning frenzy. Yep, that can happen. I'm still talking to my therapist about it. In a vacuum though, I actually really appreciate what this mechanic adds to a race. Mario Kart has always had a luck factor, so in a predominantly single-player score-focused game, I think sprinkling in a bit of chance to spice things up actually feels really organic. When you're falling behind, a frenzy is like getting a star and a golden mushroom at the same time, utterly shifting the tides of a race with the snap of a finger. When you're ahead, a frenzy is like getting a super horn and triple shells at the same time, giving you the defense you need to safely make it to the finish line. In a macro sense, it creates an addictive cycle of, oh, I want to race on this course again until I activate a frenzy at just the right time to blow up my combo. Then after doing that, going again to see if you can maximize your chances even further. The power fantasy of wielding infinite giant bananas or Bowser shells is so exciting that it keeps the high score hunting gameplay from getting stale or repetitive. You never know when a bad race is going to be turned around by a frenzy or when an already good race is going to be made even better by one. Frenzies are also important for how they tie into the game's ongoing progression. For context, drivers, karts, and gliders have stats that can be raised through playing the game and leveling up your character. This makes sense. If everything were static between each tour, the gameplay loop would once again run the risk of getting stale. Thus, one can level up their base points, which dictate the initial amount of points that the driver, kart, and glider will add to a score and are earned through playing the game, earning EXP, or using point boost tickets. Or one can level up their base skill, which has even more moment-to-moment benefits. For drivers, raising one skill not only increases the chances of starting a frenzy, but also the amount of favorite courses they have, bonus points they get, and the power of their exclusive item. A level 1 high-end driver has a 2% chance of starting a frenzy, and that's it, while a level 8 high-end driver has a 12% chance of starting a frenzy, plus 5 additional favorite courses, a 7x bonus points boost, and a powered-up special skill. Then for karts, raising one's level also adds additional favorite courses and a points boost modifier on top of a slight bonus to all bonus points earned, and for gliders, raising one's level gives a 10 to 30% boost on combo time and a secondary item with a higher rate of appearing. Keep in mind that drivers aren't the only ones to be split into tiers on each course, as a top shelf kart will further double the amount of bonus points and a top shelf glider will further triple the combo bonus. Also, the only ways to level up a unit skill are to use level boost tickets or to obtain duplicates of the specific driver, kart, or glider. Whichever you choose, it's going to take 22 of them to bring a high-end unit to level 8, 39 for a super unit, and 100 for a normal. Did I mention that it's possible to reset a pipe at any time to make obtaining duplicates much easier? Wait a second, this is bad actually. It's grindy and manipulative and clearly trying to push you into spending money to make things easier. That's not good at all. But the gameplay structure, the controls, the courses, they were also good. But, I mean, at least it's single player, right? It's not like this is a multiplayer game and this is all pay to win, right? Right? Alright, so I saved talking about the monetization for last for two reasons. One, it's probably the biggest flaw of the game that hasn't been fixed or improved since launch, and two, I didn't want to shove these very important issues into an insincere compliment sandwich. So instead, I'm doing the opposite of a compliment sandwich, an insult sandwich, like the ones they sell at Subway. The joke is that Subway tastes terrible. Also, yeah, I'm still doing cutaways. That wasn't just a temporary bit. It's part of my brand now. Gacha sucks. Like, yes, obviously I do like some games that feature gacha mechanics, and you're not a bad person if you do too. But do I really need to explain that gacha as a concept inherently sucks? There is no artistic reason for a game to have real-world gambling mechanics. It's not like the person who made the Big Bang Theory slot machine game did it because they loved the source material and wanted to translate it into an engaging interactive experience. As much as some people might enjoy it.
I am playing a game called the Big Bang Theory game. So hypnotic.
But with something like Fire Emblem Heroes, you could at least argue that it's all for a single-player game and you don't need to dish out the cash to just experience the main story. Mario Kart Tour, despite the core gameplay loop mostly being experienced alone, is not just a single-player game. In fact, there are two distinct modes where this isn't the case, online multiplayer and ranked. For one, the online multiplayer in Mario Kart Tour is kind of ass. Fortunately, it's not usually required for anything but a few weekly challenges, challenges, but it's still ass. For reasons I can't quite understand, it is perpetually split into 2 lobbies with random rule sets that change each day, dictating everything from engine class to item slots to team rallies. I don't know why it's like this, because frankly I'd only ever want to play in 150cc with 2 item slots. When you play online with 3 item slots, it literally does become pay to win. Of course people with all of the high ends are going to have an advantage over folks without any. Even when playing with a more standard rule set, the connection is a pretty mixed bag, and you can only race on courses that are currently available in this tour, so honestly there's no point. I get why they have it, but it's not really the draw. Ranked, on the other hand, is much more pivotal to the core gameplay loop and progression system, and not to sound like a broken record, but it's not a terrible idea for a mode. Quite the contrary. Just trying to raise your own high score in each cup would feel meaningless. Having a weekly ranked cup where you climb the leaderboards in exchange for rewards gives the whole experience much more cohesion and purpose. It's fun to build rivalries with randos as you compete for the top spot, to continually find ways to improve your scores that you previously thought were the highest you could go. It encourages experimentation and replayability, and since winning a ranked cup improves your overall tier, both the challenges and the rewards will grow alongside one skill. At first, mastering a ranked cup will just give one 10 rubies, but by the time one reaches tier 50, that'll grow to 50 rubies. Once again, this sounds perfectly reasonable in a vacuum, but unfortunately this game does not exist in a vacuum. It exists as a gacha, and it exists that way to make money. And how do you drive people to spend money? Employ tactics that make it advantageous for one to do so. Some of these are pretty obvious. The spotlighted drivers, carts, and gliders of each tour are almost always top shelf on the tour's ranked cups, so the person who pulls for those is at an inherent advantage. Then there are the more obtuse elements that I discussed previously. The higher a character's level is, the better they're going to perform, and the main ways to improve a character's level are to pull for that character again or use an item ticket. They often sell characters who are going to perform well in the ranked cup in bundles. I can count so many times where I've fallen behind in the gacha ranks after going against a whale with impossible to beat scores. And when falling below a certain rank means you can go down a tier, things suddenly start to feel a lot more life or death. There is nothing less fun than going down a tier because of circumstances far out of your control, because one person had to come to the gambling lottery and happened to be matched against you. Again, it's not that it's impossible to play this game for free. 95% of people aren't going to dish out triple-digit sums to win a Mario Kart Ranked Cup. Like most gachas, they rely on a small percentage of whales to keep the game running. Obviously, that's still not good, but just for the sake of arguing, let's go over the ways that a free player can earn rubies and get ahead over the course of a tour. 1. Daily bonuses. While most daily bonuses give random pipes, the Day 5 and Day 10 dailies of each tour provide 5 rubies each, making for 10 total. 2. Multiplayer challenges. Each tour has 9 online multiplayer challenges, and completing all of them gives you 5 rubies total. 3. Total points challenges. Earning a certain amount of points within the overall tour can give you anywhere from 3 to 18 rubies total, although for most casual players it's going to be in the 6 to 9 ruby range. 4. Tour gifts. Casual players can earn rubies by earning grand stars throughout the tour, usually making for 21 total. 5. Token shop. You can buy 15 total rubies in the token shop each tour, usually costing between 75 and 150 tokens. Tokens are earned as coins through playing, either by collecting them on the course or making opponents crash. Unlike coins, they only last during the specific tour, but they also have better rewards. And lastly, there are the aforementioned weekly ranked cups, which can get you between 10 to 50 rubies a week depending on your current tier and rank. So combining all of these guaranteed methods of getting rubies, not counting randomized ones like getting them from bonus pipes, the average player can earn between 64 and 169 rupees across the length of one 2-week-long tour, with most players probably falling around the 90 rupee range. And remember, it costs 450 rupees to empty a pipe, so subtract 20 pulls from the equation and the amount you need to spend on rubies goes from $236 to $189. Wow, that's how much most YouTubers make in a year. As bad as this sounds though, there does exist one silver lining within this broken gacha ecosystem that stops it from becoming too oppressive to the casual player. And that is, of all things, the Gold Pass. Yeah, that $5 a month subscription service that exists on top of all the gacha bullshit. It's good, actually, sort of. I'm shocked too. too, but I essentially look at the Gold Pass as, in a roundabout way, Mario Kart Tour's equivalent to a Battle Pass system or a subscription model. In that, yes, the game is technically free, but this small recurring fee makes it possible to unlock most of the things you want without having to grind or bring out your wallet. Again, it is not perfect, I'll get to that in a second, but it does make the experience significantly more inviting to casual and hardcore players alike. To explain what I mean, let's take a closer look at the Gold Pass's actual benefits. 1. Gold challenges. These are random assorted tasks that you earn 5 rubies and 15 grand stars for completing. 2. Gold tour gifts. This is basically like a premium track of a battle pass. As you play through a tour and earn grand stars, you get both the free rewards and exclusive new ones, including 35 additional rubies and a random assortment of drivers, carts, and gliders. 3. Monthly gifts. Each time your subscription renews, you get 10 rubies plus a free gold pipe every 3 months. 4. 200cc. It's locked to the Gold Pass for some reason. I wouldn't even say it gives you much of an advantage in the score department. It makes it easier to maintain combos, but the overall race time is shorter, so it's a wash. Oh, and that's it. Those are all the benefits of the Gold Pass. You know, I can see why everyone made fun of this thing when the game first dropped. From the outside, it doesn't sound that great. From the inside, it only sounds okay. But let's contextualize these gains within Tour's core gameplay loop. If a free player can earn 64 to 169 rubies over the course of a tour, then a Gold Pass player bumps that number up to 114 to 219, with a median of around 166. Still not a ton when you remember that it takes 450 rubies to empty a pipe, but most players aren't going to empty every single pipe. Some aren't going to interest you, some aren't going to be useful in the current ranked cup, some are just not that great, and of course, sometimes you'll get the unit you want without having to empty the pipe at all. Meanwhile, all of the other benefits that the Gold Pass brings you, additional level up and point boost tickets, way more coins than any other player, more opportunities to climb up the ranked ladder, are all going to help you succeed without having to constantly spend your rubies. It becomes much easier to save for that special character you want when you're given opportunities for success beyond just spending money. Plus, not that it means much, but Tour does employ some tactics to make the non-whale experience significantly more palpable. The character assigned to each cup will always be a high-end in one of their 3 tracks, meaning normal and super characters aren't always useless in ranked play. A newly introduced unit will obviously be top shelf in whatever the latest Tours courses are, but they also tend to be top shelf in the spotlighted courses of subsequent Tours. If you noticed a lot of Doctor and Cat play in this video, that's because I got the Doctor characters during the Doctor Fest and Cat Mario during the Cat Tour, and most of them have remained just as useful ever since. I didn't feel a major need to pull for Tie Dress Daisy when I had just gotten Pastry Chef Rosalina, who shared many of the benefits and was a better character. Earlier this year, the game introduced Miis, who are not part of the gacha rotation at all. They're always available for 70 to 100 rubies, and the more you unlock, the higher point cap the rest of them have. These days, every other batch of tours will be part of some multi-tour event featuring exclusive new challenges that earn a player 48 free rubies. Between the Gold Pass's ongoing benefits and the many quality of life updates the game has received over the years, I do think it's possible to enjoy the game while only tolerating the gacha bullshit that surrounds you. I complained about the ranked cups, but I'm still managing to climb my way up the tiers. I don't get every new spotlight, but I don't really feel a need to. Honestly, this is the part where everyone's mileage is going to vary. Do you care about ranked enough for it to bug you? Are you down to pay $5 a month for a Mario Kart service game? For me, a complete nerd who truly enjoys the gameplay loop, I don't mind. But if you don't like service games or think everything I described still sounds bad, it's probably not for you, and that's okay. Or if you're prone to a gambling addiction or find yourself tempted to spend money on the game, please stay far away from it. I don't want this video to be the reason someone does something they regret, dear lord. In an ideal but realistic world, Mario Kart Tour would not have a gacha mechanic. It'd be a free-to-play mobile game where casual fans can try out unique new tracks with a unique new playstyle, while hardcore fans can use a $5 a month service to access the ranked modes and earn exclusive spotlighted characters each tour. Perhaps characters are all bought in this shop with currency like the Mii costumes are, but spotlights don't appear in the rotation for a few months or are really expensive or something. I'm just spitballing. I'm trying to be realistic in valuing the creative freedom of an ongoing game over an ethical and exploitative means of profit, but I'm also trying to be realistic in the fact that service games need consistent monetization to stay afloat. I think those two ideas can coexist, and maybe someday they will. Probably not because the game is already successful and they have no motivation to change, but maybe. With the 100% deserved gacha regulation going on around the world, and and most of the gaming industry subsequently moving on to the Battle Pass format, I do think there's a chance for this part to improve. But in the meantime, you can be a sucker like me and pay for the Gold Pass. Or you can give me $5 a month on Patreon instead. That's actually cooler because it goes to me instead of a faceless conglomerate. Or you can spend that $5 on 100 shares of Warner Brothers stock. You do you. Just like I said at the beginning, this video is not my attempt to sell you all on Mario Kart Tour. It's a very flawed game with unethical monetization that hinders the series more than it helps it. As much as I talked about the potential of the gameplay structure, you could argue it was only done that way to justify constantly introducing new characters for people to spend money on. As much as I praise the controls, you could argue that they're too loosey-goosey for the casual Mario Kart player base to understand. Even stuff like the city courses, new characters, and reworked items could have been done in any Mario Kart game, not specifically a mobile one. I understand all of those critiques. I am not arguing for Mario Kart Tour supremacy. I am, however, arguing for Mario Kart Tour diplomacy. I don't think it's entirely fair to scrub a game out of series history when it operates on many of the same principles of the rest of the series. The single-player structure does lend itself to gacha play, but it's more of a modern take on mission mode than anything else. The controls are a bit harder for the casual player, but I mean, part of why Mario Kart Wii is so beloved is its extremely high skill ceiling. And we've already seen so much praise for some of the Tour courses in 8 Deluxe and some of the new characters that Tour has added. Mario Kart Tour is a lot of things, but it's definitely not something that should be forgotten or replaced. Improved or iterated on? Sure. Critiqued for its bad practices? Of course. But wherever you land on the spectrum, whether you think that Tour is a true Mario Kart 9 or not, I'll still contend that it's an excellent companion game to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and if the next Mario Kart game takes an idea or two from it, I will be more than happy. Thanks for watching, everyone, and while you're here, you just got Koopa-Kate. Koopa-Kate. Making it a thing. Koopa-Kate. Tell your friends. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and consider donating to my Patreon. For as low as $3 to $5 a month, you can get an amazing set of perks including early access to new videos, your name listed in the credits, monthly behind-the-scenes blog posts, and an exclusive Discord server. The more support I get, the more time I can dedicate to the channel to make in-depth video essays like these, so be sure to click the link in the description below or go to patreon.com/JennyGeist. Today I'll be giving a shout out to my patrons at the producer tier and above, those being Ace L, Fusefall, Kitty Kong Fax, Oski, Sammy, Simon Welsh, and Vincent Coates. Even if you can't donate though, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing are all still immensely helpful to me, and it means the world. With that said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later.